So there's a huge new development today in the battle between Maryland and Virginia to see who will land the new FBI headquarters. The government agency that will decide, the GSA, has altered its selection criteria, and it now appears those changes favor the two sites under consideration in Maryland. Let's get right to my guest tonight. Congressman Glenn Ivey represents Prince George's County. Both Maryland sites being considered, Greenbelt and Landover, are in his district, the 4th District. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on with us. I want to get right to this change in criteria. So taking cost and equity into effect, these are now going to be weighted higher. And proximity to the FBI Training Academy and its facilities in Quantico, Virginia, that goes down the weighting scale. So does this feel like a win for Maryland?
Yeah, I think it's a huge step in the right direction for us for a couple of reasons. One is that the cost consideration in particular is significantly in our favor. I think using either one of the sites in Prince George's County will save the taxpayers at least $1 billion in contrast to using the Virginia site. So I think that's a critical factor for us. As far as the reducing the impact or the importance of proximity to Quantico, I've always felt that the more important considerations were proximity to the courthouses and the field offices, which is where FBI agents do their work. So I thought that was right. And, I've mentioned this before, but, moving it closer to the training site is like moving the Pentagon up to New York, so it's closer to West Point. It's kind of the tail wagging the dog. So I think this made sense to move that in that direction too. And from the standpoint of diversity, I mean, Prince George is a predominantly African-American county. There's a long history of us not getting quite as much of the consideration as Northern Virginia has for some of these key sightings for federal installations. And so I think it's time for us to have our turn on that as well.
Congressman, I realize in talking about this story, as I do, and I tend to get into the weeds on it, we don't really spend a lot of time talking about why it's such a big deal. So I'd like to frame that for our audience tonight. Can you explain why landing the new FBI headquarters would be such a big deal for whichever site ends up with it?
Well, I mean, the construction of it will be a multi-billion-dollar project. So I think that's a huge factor from the standpoint of employment and building it. It'll help with, people who work on construction in the Prince George's County and area and beyond. So that's one big factor. I like the prestige of it. I mean, we've had a mixed history with the FBI in some respects. The J. Edgar Hoover legacy is a mixed bag at best. But I think putting it in Prince George's County, a predominantly African-American county, makes a huge statement as far as our movement as a nation beyond those dark days. And also, I think from the standpoint of just jobs, we've got a lot of people. I think it's around 30 to 40% of the people who work at the FBI live in Prince George's County or the immediate vicinity. So from a commuting standpoint, it's good for them. Yeah. And to the extent more jobs are, brought there in the future, I think it'll help with employment in our area too. So it's a win-win all around if we can land it.
Yeah. Who's having a moment with the FBI right now is congressional Republicans. And we've seen this week that the House Appropriations Committee passed a bill that doesn't include any money to fund this project. So regardless of where it lands, Congressman, I'm wondering if you're worried about this money being appropriated for this project, both in this fiscal year and down the road, given some of the hard-right Republicans and their feelings about the FBI.
No, frankly, I'm not worried about it. I know some of the Republicans in the House had a temper tantrum about some of these things, especially on the Judiciary Committee. But my understanding is there's strong bipartisan support broadly in the House caucus, including Republicans, to move this forward, because they understand we've got a building in D.C. right now that's falling apart, literally. They've got nets around it to keep chunks of the building from falling down and hitting pedestrians. So it makes sense to move the building in that sense. And also it gives the FBI a chance to consolidate some of the other offices and activities that they've had. They can put them all in one place and build a facility that is, hardened and protected against terrorist attacks. So I think it makes sense all the way around. And I'm pretty confident that not only will the House Republicans see that, but I know it's already moving well in the Senate as well, and has strong support there too.
We know it's clear that some of the congressional Republicans don't really care if the building's falling apart, if they can score some quick political points. Real quick, Congressman, last thing. What is the timeline expected for this decision now that the criteria has been reweighted? I mean, gosh, we've waited more than 10 years for this to happen. Is it going to happen this year?
I hope so. I mean, I'm not exactly sure on the timing, but we've had some timeline issues where things got moved, and sometimes that had to happen, sometimes it didn't. But I think where we are now, I'd be expecting some kind of decision in the very near future. I would say at least in the next couple of months, and it needs to be a final decision so we can get started on this. This is a multi-year project. The FBI should have moved. The project should have started, I think it was 13, 14 years ago when this all got underway. So the move should have happened long ago. Let's get it done.
Got it. Well, some great perspective there from you, Congressman, and this would be a big win for you. First-term Congressman landing $2 billion federal contract. I'm sure you're anxious to get that. I got a lot of help
from my colleagues in the Maryland delegation. They've been at this before I got here.
Yeah, we know that you all have been working as a cohesive unit to try and do this. Congressman, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.